All right, Tommy, answer me this.
Okay.
You've got two really cool little cars that, are kind of rugged in a world that's gone completely crazy for off-roaders and overlanders, and yet they decide to saddle them with, in the case of this Subaru, a CVT, and in the case of your Taos, a dual clutch. Why?
Well, if you listen to the marketing, apparently neither of those matter, especially with the Subaru, because pretty much every shot of that Crosstrek on the website is it climbing some kind of hill, or going through some kind of forest, or really cruising off-road. So we're going to find out today how these do in the real world, off the pages of the marketing campaigns.
I just think that like Walmart was having one of those price cut markdowns on CVTs and dual clutch transmissions, and the engineer happened to walk in there and bought 100,000 of them for each vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dad. But the reason that these little crossovers are selling so well right now,
I think is largely because of Instagram, right? People want to take those nice shots of themselves and their friends and their families in the woods and at the cool campsites and at the hard to get to surfing spots. And there's this image that these little crossovers can get you there. So, well, will they get you there?
Well, we're about to find out which has done a better job of that. Is it the Germans with the Taos, which is, granted a very tough sounding vehicle, or the tougher sounding Crosstrek?
So how is a Crosstrek performing on the service road?
Blazy back here seems to be happy. He thinks it's doing just fine. Once again with the CVT, it's like you have a pillow between you and the gas pedal, so nothing dramatic is going to happen, especially not when it's paired with this little 2-liter that puts out like 150 horsepower.
Well, I think Blazy the dog appreciates that smoothness.
But I do have one huge advantage over Mr. Taos there, and that is 8.7 inches of ground clearance, dude. What are you at?
Yeah, I'm somewhere around 7, maybe even just under 7 inches of ground clearance. So I will say that 8.7 inches is handy on these forest roads when you're just kind of traversing these rocks. It's pretty flat here, so not really pushing the all-wheel drive systems, but I'm definitely a little bit more careful cruising over some of these small boulders in the path than you are in the Subaru.
Cheap and cheerful, Tommy. Cheap and cheerful. We are here at Tombstone, so let's park them. Let's show off the tires. Maybe show off how these things look parked next to each other, and then I'll let you take them up the hill so that we can take at least one of the variables out of it, and that is the driver.
10-4, let's do it.
All right, Tommy, we are at Tombstone Hill, and as always, there is two parts of the hill. There's the easy part called Truth, and then there's the hard part called Dare. And we'll see if they can even get to Dare, because both of these transmissions are going to struggle. The question is, how much, I think?
Well, I think before we cruise up the hill, let's go ahead and run a slip test. We're going to get these vehicles stuck on purpose in these rollers to see how the all-wheel drive systems perform before we hit it in the real world.
Yeah, that's a great scientific test that kind of shows what it does on paper, and then you can compare it to what it does in the real world. Blazy, what are you doing? Are you walking around?
Oh, Blazy's true four-wheel drive here with the low range, four-paw action. He's pretty good off-road, but let's start with the Subaru.
All right, let's go up the hill. You want to drive?
Yo, yeah. So welcome to the TFL slip test. I've got these specially made rollers. We're going to test out the all-wheel drive systems. Starting with this Subaru Crosstrek. Subaru is supposed to have a legendarily good all-wheel drive system, symmetrical all-wheel drive. So first up, the front wheel test. Both front wheels stuck in the rollers. We're going to go into neutral, let the car settle, and then into drive, and gently on the throttle, see if we can get unstuck. Now, I'm not going to use any special modes to begin with. I'm just going to use normal mode, traction control on, like you would drive this car every single day, because I want this to be applicable for those people who live in snowy environments too. Maybe where you're not always clicking the off-road mode on, but let's see what happens. So, into drive, foot off the brake in 3, 2, 1, onto the throttle. Okay, so a slight amount of slippage from the front wheels, but the rear end engaged and pulled us off. Let's go try it in the Volkswagen. Next up, the Cornflower Blue Taos. I kid you not, that is the color name, Cornflower Blue. It actually looks really good, kind of like the Ford Grabber Blue. But let's see how this vehicle performs in contrast to the Subaru. So, in case you're wondering, yes, I do re-grease the roller so we don't get extra friction between runs. Yes, it does take forever. But normal mode, into drive with the Volkswagen front wheel slip test. Let's see what happens. Nice and settled, onto the throttle. Okay, so pretty similar. A little bit of slipping, especially right off of idle there, and then just not much throttle, pull us right off. Good result. The Crosstrek has an off-road mode. It's called X mode. Really cool name for an off-road mode, but basically what that's going to do is put the engine, traction control, programming, that kind of thing into an off-road oriented setting. There's no low range. There's no, I don't know, locking diffs, nothing like that. Just X mode. So we saw how this car performed on the rollers. Let's see how it does in the real world. This is Tombstone Hill. Steep, loose. It's got some articulation sections, but it's pretty representative to a trail here in Colorado that you might find to access a really cool out-of-the-way campsite. Really excited to see how the Crosstrek performs. So I'm going to engage X mode here, the off-road setting. I think we're just going to give it a whirl.
All right, we have taken up the Crosstrek up Tombstone before, and if you want to check out that video, just click on the link below, and you'll see that it struggled because of the tires and the CVT.
Now this Crosstrek has a 2-liter Boxer 4. It makes 152 horsepower. The torque is right around 145. My dad is already pointing, but I want to go through the hard part. All right, so we did get very off kilter there, but the all-wheel drive system was able to figure out how to distribute torque. Now this flat 4, I don't know, it's all right. You can get this car in both the 2 and the 2.5 liter. I'm foot to the floor right now, just in case you're wondering. CVT groaning away. Both the 2 liter and the 2.5 liter, they're kind of like toast. They're fine, but you know, difference between sourdough and white. Neither of them are all that exciting. All right, I'm foot to the floor right now. CVT's whining. We're not actually going anywhere. There it goes. Man, these are just not fun to off-road in. It's like off-roading with your foot on a whoopee cushion. They make a lot of noise and then they don't go anywhere. Now you're probably thinking, wow, take that thing with some momentum. I could hit this hill at 45 miles an hour, sure. But then you start running into clearance issues. You know, you start compressing the suspension when you hit the bigger bumps. Then you slam the oil pan into a rock. It doesn't have underbody protection and your day is over. Well, you know, I gotta say, we did make it up here. I've never been up this hill having to use more throttle. My foot was all the way to the floor for quite a bit of that climb. And it's just not a good feeling having nothing in reserve. I mean, it feels like this car is constantly on the edge of being bogged down, even when you take it up, you know, fairly mild hill.
You know, the sense I get with the Subaru is it'll do it, but it's not like a natural athlete. It really depends on the driver. You got to really work it. You got to work the wheel, look for traction. And if it gets even a little bit out of joint, you know, if it gets a little off kilter and like say you get 2 wheels in the air, it's done.
All right, Tommy, you made it up. Truth, you want to try there?
Not really, but if the viewers think it would be interesting, we'll try to drag this thing up there.
Hell yeah, that's why we make the small bucks, dude.
So going down the hill, I do feel the hill descent control engaged. It does a good job of keeping me at a controlled rate so I don't run into Blazy here. There he goes, he's off the trail now. Hill descent control works pretty well, a little bit quick for more extreme off-roading, but you know, it does what it needs to do. So when it comes to tires, the Volkswagen uses a Pirelli all-season on an 18-inch wheel, and the Subaru uses a Geolander all-season on a 17-inch wheel. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at the front ends, in theory, the Volkswagen is supposed to have a lot more ground clearance, but what do you think? Approach angle seems pretty darn similar. Got a bunch of these rental Jeeps up here, and they look like Skittles, or all these bright colors. Speaking of Skittles, 2 more bright colors here. But anyways, let me know what you think has a better approach angle, the Volkswagen or the Subaru, just from looking at it. The Volkswagen Taos also has an off-road mode. You engage it by spinning this knob down here. Now, there's actually 2 different off-road modes. This one and this one. The difference is driving mode off-road auto, and then driving mode custom. And in the custom setting, you can change the all-wheel drive system, the steering, the drivetrain, and even hill descent control. You can turn it on and off like that. So I've gone into the off-road auto setting. Let's see how the car is able to figure things out. Now the dual clutch, the reason the dual clutch is not very good, there's no torque converter and you end up just grinding the clutch at slow speeds and then they can actually overheat. But let's see how the 4Motion system works.
All right, here he comes in the Taos. Now, traditionally dual clutches have overheated when we've tried them up these hills. Of course, those have been Hyundai and Kia products. So we'll see how Volkswagen's dual clutch does. You know, in the order of off-road worthiness, it's usually automatic, manual, CVT, dual clutch, or dual clutch CVT. They're not grand for off-roading. They just aren't designed for this kind of work. They're designed more for track work, changing gears very quickly.
All right, so just gonna take it nice and slow, just like the Subaru. And in case you're wondering, we are not paid by any car manufacturer or truck manufacturer. So Subaru isn't paying us, Volkswagen isn't paying us, nothing like that. I gotta say, well, come on, figure it out. All right, once you get into the clutch, or once you get out of the clutch, I should say, much more power, like significantly more. Once that first gear engages, it feels night and day difference. But like right now, I'm floored, nothing, come on, figure it out, nothing. And there it goes, and then it just launches up the hill. So hard to modulate. Come on. Oh, I don't know, actually. It's not feeling very good. I'm gonna have to, come on, my foot is to the floor. It's not feeling very good. Actually, I gotta say, on this section, the Subaru performed better. No, it's fine. I just, trying to figure out what the best approach is here. Basically what happens is I have to leave my foot on the ground, completely mat it for 3 or 4 seconds before the clutch kind of figures out what to do. And then once that first gear engages, it takes off, but it, it's not exactly smooth or refined.
You know, it's the polar opposite of the Subaru, right? It just sends way too much power at the wrong time.
Jesus, there we go. Okay, so once you fully engage first gear, you're good to go. But then you're going 8 miles an hour, and that's too fast for this kind of terrain. You're gonna, once again, slam yourself into a rock and take out an oil pan. Okay.
You know, it's like the Subaru cuts power, and the Taos cuts power and then sends power, but way too much of it. It's like, you know, you order your dinner, and the waiter or waitress forgets about it, and then to make up for it, they, give you 2 helpings of your steak. Either way, it's not a good experience.
So let's go ahead and try to make our way down the hill. It's going to take it nice and slow and see how the vehicle performs. Still in the off-road setting.
Try the hill descent control.
Yeah, the hill descent control doesn't seem to be doing much. I'm working on it. I'm not seeing a button here, and it's not really... I mean, is it supposed to be an automatic thing? Let me try to go into manual mode, first gear. Maybe that'll engage it. This car didn't come with an owner's manual. It's brand new. Yeah, that's not hill descenting at all. Let me try going into the custom setting and adjust the custom setting. Hill descent control on and custom. All right, let's see. Yeah, that is not slowing that descent at all. All right, I'm going with the brakes. All right, brakes work. Yeah, they seem to do the trick just fine. Well, we made it down, Truth. Do you want me to even try the dare side?
Just let's try like half of it, and if we're about to submerge it into a rock, I'll tell you, and we'll call it. Okay? I don't want to do any damage to the vehicle. It's not ours.
Yep.
The Subaru is ours, so I'm okay doing damage with it. Which is weird. You'd figure I'd be okay with doing damage to a vehicle that is ours, but that's not how we roll.
Now, the Subaru Crosstrek is, of course, the least expensive Subaru you can buy, and we purchased this one ourselves as a long-term test vehicle, and it goes in the kind of order of expense. It starts at the Subaru Crosstrek, then the Forester, then the Outback, and then, of course, the Ascent. Now, the Taos is a brand new vehicle that Volkswagen has just introduced. It is also the least expensive and the smallest Volkswagen, and in that order it would go Taos, Tiguan, and of course Atlas when you're looking at their crossover lineup. Okay, Atlas Sport, if you want to go with the GT kind of hatchbacky thing.
So next up is the diagonal slip test. The right front and the left rear are stuck in the rollers. The other two opposite ends of the car have traction on the ground, and we're going to see what happens with the all-wheel drive system. So now we're going to have to engage the traction control. The wheels that are spinning are going to have to be stopped. Essentially, the brakes are going to apply, forcing power to the wheels with traction. Let's see how it works in the Subaru Crosstrek. So we're settled into drive, foot off the brake, gently onto the throttle. Now more throttle. Wow, that was pretty poor. That took a lot of thought from the Subaru. Let me try it one more time, this time engaging X mode, the off-road mode. See if that changes anything. So in a neutral, we're going to settle. X mode on. X mode only works up to about 20 miles an hour though, it's worth noting. So let's see if this changes the programming at all. So foot off the brake, we're settled onto the throttle. Okay, yeah, pretty big difference actually, very large difference. So you could see that it responded much quicker to the spinning wheels and got us off with much more ease. But of course, X mode will kick off at about 20, so you can't really be driving around with X mode on all the time in the snow if you're going over 18 miles an hour or something. But anyways, it was cool seeing the difference between X mode off and on. Diagonal slip test in the Volkswagen. Backing onto the rollers, same set of rollers. So the right front and the left rear are going to be stuck into neutral, let the vehicle settle. Starting off in normal mode, if we get really hung up, maybe I'll go to the off-road setting just like I did on the Crosstrek. So foot off the brake, onto the throttle. Okay, the very kind of a weird feeling. So the clutch is really trying to get, okay. That was uncomfortable. So what happened there was gently on the throttle, slipping the dual clutch, and then it would engage, and then the turbo would start to spool up, and then it would be like, nope, got to try it again, slipping the dual clutch, engage, turbo spool up, and then eventually pulled us off. We'll try it one more time though in the off-road setting. This dual clutch is very hard to modulate. So off-road setting in the Volkswagen Taos. I really, let me, before I do this, I want to say I'm being very gentle on the throttle with both of these as you would be if you were stuck in the snow. I don't want to just jam on the throttle. But it's interesting to see how the CVT and the dual clutch perform differently. So, off-road mode in the Volkswagen, gently under the throttle. Come on, figure it out. Wow, and then it just jumps off the roller. So, I think the Subaru did a little better, it was a little bit more linear than the Taos. So interior-wise, well, this is the entry-level Crosstrek. MSRP somewhere in the $25,000 range. It's pretty basic. Plastic steering wheel, plastic door panels, plastic dashboard, small screen, 6.5-inch screen, basic gauges. I mean, it works. It's very durable. Rubber mats. There's not really anything in here that feels like it could get scratched up or damaged from your Nalgene and kale smoothies, but pretty different than the Volkswagen. Let's take a look. So this Taos that Volkswagen lent us for the week is much more upmarket. This one comes in at $32,000, and as such, the interior, well, it's a little bit nicer. So for example, we've got a digital gauge cluster here, heated seats, that kind of thing. But my favorite part on this Taos are the seats. I love these seats. They're not a typical cloth, they're not a leatherette, they're actually like a neoprene. I've never felt this material in any other seat. They just, oh, they feel really good. But apart from the seats, the overall design in here, it's pretty conservative. I almost want to say a little bit bland. There's nothing that really stands out as cool or spunky, except for maybe this dark blue dash panel. But apart from that, I think Volkswagen could have gone a little bit more creative with some of the overall design.
So that is truth. This is dare. And if you look over there, you'll see that it's, a lot more rutted out. And that's where he's going to struggle. All right, come on up, Tommy.
So still in X mode. Come on, car. Once again, foot to the floor, doing 1 mile an hour. Transmission just groaning away. I'm gonna try to keep a little bit of momentum here. Not so much that it goes slamming the front end into a rock, but you know, enough to kind of help me climb through this thing. Come on, Subaru. Come on, buddy. All right, pretty good there, pretty good there. trying to maintain the momentum, sawing at the wheel. Come on, figure it out, come on, car. All right, let me go ahead and try to turn off traction control. Some people on the Subaru forum says that can help you out a little bit.
You know, I gotta tell you, I love this vehicle, not because it's fancy or because it's especially technologically advanced, but because it's none of those things. It's just a good all-around kind of the mama bear sized vehicle. And even back here, you know, I'm pretty tall, 6'2", with the seat where I drive, which is as back as it gets. You know, I have headroom, I have knee room, and you know, I could spend some time back here. It's not a prison.
All right, here we go. Take 2. Slightly different line. Now, when you get really off kilter, that's when the brakes have to engage, and that's really where the Subaru starts to struggle. Because then you got wheels in the air and you're just struggling for torque. Well, we did make it up. Had to adjust the line a little bit. A little bit of speed. These definitely are momentum vehicles, and yes, we were able to make it up.
All right, so you made it, dude, but you had to work it pretty hard.
Yeah, it seemed to help a little bit when I turned the traction control off. That was interesting.
I mean, just a little bit, not like night and day, but you know, maybe a little bit of extra grunt.
But I don't think it lives up to the Subaru marketing hype. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, what you did there was you showed your expertise in off-roading because you had to really work it. I mean, it's just not a natural born athlete. It just really, you know, it'll do it, but you got to know how to find the right line, and you got to really, you know, push it to what most people would think is an uncomfortable amount of, well, throttle and potential trail damage.
It also likes to go up on 3 wheels. That's not uncommon for independent suspension vehicles, but you know, it is something you got to get used to when you're 4-wheel driving in a Subaru Crosstrek.
You're going to bury your nose, but keep going. You might not bury it too much. Oh, by the skin of your teeth, Tommy.
By the skin of my teeth. That's a good metaphor for driving off-road in a Subaru Crosstrek. All right, so now for the 3-wheeled slip test in the Subaru. Both rear wheels are stuck, so is the right front. Only the front left has traction. This is a seriously difficult test, but let me back on up to the rollers and position ourselves, and then we'll give it a try. So starting out in normal mode, no special X mode engaged, just gonna drive it like people do every single day. And off the brake, onto the throttle. It's trying, more throttle. All right, let me try X mode. Let's see if X mode can help us out at all here. Much more aggressive on the traction control. With X mode off, we didn't quite get enough power to that traction wheel to get us unstuck, but when you engage X mode, all of a sudden it clamps down hard on that front right brake and forces power to the wheel with traction. We got a little skid, that was a little skirt, and then the whole vehicle was able to pull itself off. Now the funny thing about the Taos is you can get this car with a conventional automatic, but only in front wheel drive. So if you want all wheel drive, you gotta get the dual clutch. So normal mode, into drive, 3-wheel slip test, foot off the brake, onto the throttle. Oh. Not feel good.
Yeah, you slipped off there, Tommy.
Yeah. I mean, I got no modulation. It's like it's off the clutch or it's on the clutch.
Yeah, so what happened was the rear of the vehicle turned sideways and you hit the side of the
I got too much wheel speed.
side of the rollers, yeah.
Okay, we'll try it again.
Well, I mean, you know, it's gonna keep doing it. I don't think it's gonna get off.
Should we try the off-road mode?
Yeah, try the off-road
All right,
mode.
we'll try it one more time with the off-road mode. Well, okay, kind of unconclusive. I mean, you get nothing or you get maximum wheel speed in this Volkswagen with the dual clutch. Like now. That's quarter throttle, half throttle, nothing, and then it just launches its way up. But there we go, that was getting the hang of it. Then we go to the off-road mode, we'll try the front wheel slip test again. Other 3 stuck. So off-road mode engaged. Yeah, it's slipping off the rollers, unfortunately. Yeah, bummer. Alright, well that was kind of inconclusive, unfortunately. So we'll go on to the last one.
Same issue, the car is torquing it, the back is torquing itself
I know, it's
sideways,
torquing itself sideways.
and then it's hitting the side of the rollers and pulling off.
So now for the hardest test for these small crossovers. The rear wheel slip test. Both fronts are stuck, the right rear is stuck, only the left rear has traction. Once again, just gonna start out in normal mode here with the Subaru. X mode off, so into neutral, we're settled. Into drive, see if it has what it takes. Nothing. So a lot of wheel spin, traction control light blinking, but not unstuck. Turn X mode on, see if that fixes it. All right, you can hear the ABS pump working. Oh no, it's not doing. Don't slip on me. Don't slip on me. It's trying to cheat. It's trying to cheat. All right, well, it did it. Took a lot of work. I mean, that was one of the harder times I've had to do that, but we did get off. Here comes the big cheese.
But you know what? It didn't really do it. I mean, yes, but you know, in the real world situation,
yeah,
that's gonna take a long time.
If that's a snowbank, you're gonna be on that snowbank for quite some time.
Yeah.
On the first test, we got basically like torque steer. I mean, it was too much wheel speed, but I can't modulate it. With the dual clutch, it's either no wheel speed or all the wheel speed. So we'll try the last one with just the rear wheel on the ground. It's half throttle, I'm not moving. There we go. Everything or nothing with the little Taos. So we're nice and settled. Normal mode, let's see what happens. All right, lane assist currently unavailable. That's not helpful. Let me try the off-road mode. That was standard mode. I've got into the off-road mode. Let's see if we can get unstuck. Come on, figure it out. No, it's stuck.
You're getting sparks in the rollers.
We're stuck.
You're getting sparks in the rollers.
So that one was definitely, unfortunately, not a pass.
No,
that was a fair test. It's not sliding. It's just it's not giving enough torque.
You're starting to burn up the rollers.
Can you give me a push?
Yeah.
All right. There we go. Well, the Subaru took some thought compared to some other cars I've tested, but it did complete every test. The Volkswagen, not so much.
Yeah. You know, we'll see what this translates to when we actually go up Tombstone Hill. That's going to be the real world test.
Oh, for sure. Let's check out the hard side, dare side. Now, this is a good example where I could definitely make it up this if I could use momentum, but I can't use momentum because I don't have the clearance. So I'm just gonna try to crawl it, I guess. 3 miles an hour seems to be kind of a happy medium. If you go down to 0 or 1
hold
like
on,
that.
you got the dog. Please, no.
Please, he just wants to be part of the action.
You know, this is where Volkswagen really shines. Both these vehicles directly compete in the sub-market crossover class, but look, I actually have this giant sunroof, and even with it, I have tons of headroom. I have more knee room. I probably have more shoulder room, and this is one of the biggest vehicles in this kind of small crossover class. And if you love room, this is definitely the one to get. All right, try it.
But I did it! Woo-hoo! I think I got lucky a little bit there with the line and maybe a little bit of driving ability there. But yeah, so we did it! Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, the clutch is so unpredictable. Sometimes the clutch grabs like that and you can just, you know, wheel your way out of everything. Other times it just... It doesn't. Other times the clutch just sits there and grinds itself away. What a weird driving experience. I mean, it's so unpredictable. Like, the Subaru is very predictable. It's not very good, right? You just sit there, but it's very kind of predictably, you know, consistent on how it does.
All right, Tommy, let's face it, they both have, well, issues when you take them seriously off-road. But if you want something with a lot of space, certainly go with the Taos, in the segment at least. And if you want something that is kind of the mama bear, the perfect runabout in town, go for the Crosstrek.
Right, but neither of them would be very happy on a trail run regularly on the weekends.
Yeah, for that, I would go with either the Jeep, the Renegade, or...
Yeah, the Bronco Sport. We took the Bronco Sport up here and it kind of killed it. So check that one out if you want some more capability.
As always, this is Roman and Tommy and Blaze saying thanks for watching, and check out TFL Car, TFL Off-Road, and TFLTruck.com for more news, views, and of course, these fun off-road reviews. See you next time. Ciao.
Bye.